Alrighty, welcome back to our Groundskeeper chat series. I'm your host, Meg Kruger. I am the content lead with Pioneer Athletics, and today I am joined by my co-host, Weston Appenfeller. And this chat, scheduling it, was a nice little challenge for me. Nice little reminder of the time zones around the world. So first off, we'd like to just thank our guest for being patient as I navigated. I could have probably Googled some things, but he gave me a lesson on time zones via email. So we're happy to have him join us all the way from the Mountain Time Zone, Salt Lake City, Mr. Dan Farnes. And Weston, I will let you take it away and give him a proper introduction.
All right. Yeah. Today's guest doesn't need an introduction. As you said, he comes from Salt Lake City, a cult hero in the industry, the head groundskeeper at Real Salt Lake, and more importantly, the owner of Dad's Holiday Lights.
Oh, I'm going to have to hear about that one.
and I'd like to introduce Mr. Dan Farnes. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Stoked to be on. You've had some legends on here, so I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And so I'm going to have to ask before Weston jumps into his first question, what are the Dad Holiday Lights?
That's a little side gig that we have here. Dad's Holiday Lights is something that me and a few of the guys here on the crew do in the off season. It's Christmas or holiday lights for housing.
Love it.
It's all custom lights, LED. They're not permanent, so we put them up in the fall and the off season, take them down in December, January.
Love it.
And we have a handful of clients, and it's a good little side gig.
I love it. The perfect side hustle. So
Right.
you're a jolly elf, in
That's
other
right.
words.
Right.
All right, Weston, I'll shoot it back to you for that first question.
Yeah. So first question, I know we shot over a list of topics we'd like to discuss. This one is not on there. We talked a little bit about stuff you do outside of work, but what do you enjoy doing outside of work? How do you get away from the stress of our job and do what you like to do?
Man, that is a good question. And it's a good thing my wife isn't on here, because she would say there would be nothing because I work too much. But no, being in Utah, I'm sure you guys have heard or have seen, there's a ton of outdoor activities to do here, especially in southern Utah where it's a little bit warmer. A ton of state parks, national parks. I would say that's probably my most favorite thing, is traveling to those places and camping or staying in like little cabins and stuff. So the kids seem to love it. My wife and I love to get out of the city and just kind of relax in the mountains. So
How long have you been married, and how old are your kids?
been married for 18 years, and then I have 3 kids. Leo is 14, Penny is 10, and then little Abe is going to be 5 next month.
Great names. Wow. And you're really speaking our love language here: hiking, camping, national parks. That's the bread and butter of the Groundskeeper chat hosts. And Weston, are you being rained on as we I see it coming into view.
So Dan, I started this sitting outside to show like a little bit of compassion for the groundskeepers that still have to work outside, even though I now, travel and work inside
Sure.
in my house. And I've been very fortunate with weather. It has been cold a little bit, but this is the first time that I've experienced rain. And so we'll see how this goes. We'll see how this goes.
Awesome.
Yeah,
not bad right now.
Yeah, you avoided a lot of the elements because we recorded a ton of episodes at the national conference this year. So he really didn't have to do too much this winter, but I'm glad to see him, getting what he asked for. But Dan, the first official question we have for you is, what is your turf origin story? How did this come up on your radar, and how did you really find a home within this industry? I think I saw 13 seasons now with Real Salt Lake.
Yeah, 13 seasons. Just here, yeah, at Real Salt Lake. For me, it started really early. I started mowing lawns in my neighborhood, when I was just a kid, 10 years old, 11 years old. Um, and then was lucky enough to have two grandpas that were still alive who had some property. They taught me how to work hard, managing orchards and irrigation and stuff like that. So I took that to my first job when I was 15, working for Bountiful City Parks Department. Uh, City of Bountiful is like 10 miles north of Salt Lake,
Mm-hmm.
is where I grew up. So I was on the mow crew. It was amazing. We had 20 parks that we mowed throughout the week. So we would just jump in the truck with a trailer, learn how to drive a trailer really early, which has been nice going forward. So I did that for 4 years, and then decided to go up to Utah State University, which is in the northern part of the state, here in Utah. I wanted to go into landscape architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Took 2 years of landscape architecture. The teachers or the professors didn't like my drawings so much, so I didn't do awesome in those classes, but the classes that I did take that I really liked were the horticulture classes.
Mm-hmm.
So after 2 years, I kind of switched gears, went into parks and recreation with a minor in horticulture. That's what I ultimately graduated in. There were really great classes, great professors up there at Utah State. Um, and then after graduation, moved to Boise, Idaho, worked for a commercial landscaping business, and they were, man, it was a tough job because we had the accounts that were like downtown Boise.
Yep.
So really high profile accounts. You had to be perfect in what you did. And at the time, I was kind of miserable, but that stuff really taught me how to have better attention to detail and learn how to work quickly but efficiently, um, things like that. Worked there for about a year. Saw a Parks and Rec job in southern Utah, a town called St. George. Started working for them. Worked there for about 3 months, and then they fired me. Um, and
Ridiculous.
um, I was just kind of, I was just out of college. I had all these new ideas. I wanted to try different things.
Mm-hmm.
They did not like that. They had their ways, and they got rid of me. So anyway,
Did it
as I was
require
telling
drawing?
my wife, what's that?
Did it require drawing?
Yeah, there was a little bit of drawing. No drawing, but anyway, my wife was like, I had just told her, and maybe 2 days later, she said, "Hey, I saw posting for Real Salt Lake
Mm-hmm.
part-time, hourly. It was like $9 an hour. Um, she's like, what do you think about this?" And I'm like, well, it's part-time. But she knew that I was a soccer guy. I've grown up as a soccer guy, and she supported me, and we moved in with my grandma for a little bit, and that was back in 2011. Um, and I was just lucky enough to work my way up to assistant director, and then my boss at the time, I think Nick Takis
Hmm.
Weston. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He left 8 years ago, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and I just got lucky enough to get the director position, and look at me now.
I'm
So
sure it's been, smooth sailing, bliss at all.
super easy.
I will say
Yeah,
St. George is one of my favorite places in the world, but it just went down on my list in my desire to be friends with you. I will, knock it down my list of favorite
sure,
places.
sure.
Ridiculous.
It's one of those things where it's like, I mean, ultimately it led me to this
Hmm.
because I mean, when I was going to school, I had no idea that a sports turf manager existed. This was back, I graduated in '09.
Hmm.
So
Even after having that Parks and Rec exposure, it still didn't register as a career option for you.
yeah, it just wasn't on my radar.
Hmm.
I don't know how I was missing it, or if it just wasn't kind of advertised as much in my area
Hmm.
or at all. But yeah, I just didn't had no idea.
I mean, that's a perfect segue into our topic today, which is really about capitalizing on cultural events to kind of garner this attention, get those young kids involved, get in front of them, and let them know this is a career option. But I mean, the low hanging fruit that you're showing right now, even just engaging the people that are adjacent to our industry or are involved maybe at their Parks and Rec, or maybe they're, an umpire for their local, getting those people that are already involved in the sports industry and helping them find a career here. Because yeah, I mean, I think the simple answer to maybe how it didn't come up on your radar is that for so long groundskeepers have wanted to be in the background. They haven't been those front facing people in the organization. If you're not talking about the field, it's a winning day.
Right.
So that's just the simple answer. But I think what we really want to, be sure that we're ahead of the game here is making sure that when all of these eyeballs, are here in for this global event that is going to be the World Cup, how we can, really direct the conversations in the right way, and ensure that we're reaching the right people, and fueling our labor force for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be on that side of things, World Cup. Weston was at this meeting that we had in
Hmm.
Knoxville 2 weeks ago, and yeah, they're talking about how many fields there is gonna be, how many stadiums, training sites, home bases. I mean, it was like 180 fields or something, if I remember right, Weston, and like thousands of groundskeepers are needed. So
Yeah, that was the closed groundskeeper portion of the meeting. So we could probably get some info from you on that.
Yeah.
Being on the
Spill the
commercial
tea.
side, I was not in that.
okay.
But I did hear some of those numbers as people exited the room and
Yeah.
talking, and it is quite alarming as to how big it's going to be and how much is needed to put it on. So
Hmm.
Yeah.
And even, like another portion of that is how do we keep those people engaged who might just come out and think they're going to work the World Cup, whether they're just going to do like a part-time thing or they're going to work, concessions at one, how do we engage those people to be like, hey, this could be this doesn't have to be a 6 week thing. This could be, a career, and how we really get some attention from them as well.
Yeah, for sure. For
So
sure.
I guess the question I'd love to start with is, give us your point of view. Weston shared his point of view the last couple times that we talked with Paula Sleefer on this topic, and then Weston and I kicked this topic around a bit ourselves. But he shared, his point of view from his past in groundskeeping. But what is your point of view as far as media attention, kind of stepping into that spotlight? Because in a lot of ways, we believe that some of this media attention or even putting a camera in front of your face is going to be inevitable if you're hosting, or even if you're a training site. So, what's from your point of view, like, what's your relationship with the media in that sense?
Yeah, that's a great point. Talking about media or social media is, or being a part of that is huge, in my
Hmm.
opinion. I know we were talking about kind of when I was starting, groundskeepers wanted to kind of stay in the shadows and everything. And I totally get that side of it and totally respect guys that don't want to be on camera or don't really want to participate on social media. Totally get that.
Hmm.
And then I'm not one to call the local news station and say, hey, we're aerating today. If you want to come and take some pictures or anything like that. It's simply just about putting the information out there for me.
Yeah.
Um, I I don't have a ton of followers on Twitter, but I like to think that I have a good relationship with the people that are on there. I try to keep it positive. But at the same time, I don't kind of spew everything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always positive. I try and do everything. It's not just beauty pictures, it's issues that we're seeing too. So the media around here in Salt Lake and the media for the teams, we have a really great relationship with them. They realize that people love what we do. They
Mm-hmm.
think it's super interesting, and people generally have no idea what it takes to maintain these fields and these everything from what we do with the goals to painting to mowing and everything. So we work together with our media team. They do hype videos, and we get a second blurb in with those.
Love it.
I'm really trying to push the crew here to be more of a part of that, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be the only face on these pictures, but
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, just a great media relationship, and it it's good to get your name out there, whether
Yep.
it's myself or whether it's with my people. If if you're looking to move somewhere else, or if you're just trying to get on the radar of the higher ups in your team or your company, it's what is that? Good, bad publicity is good. What is the saying?
No bad press,
That's it. That's
and
it.
also attracting talent too. Like people
Yeah,
saying, "Oh, I want to work for that guy that's always posting positive, or just positive takes, or he shows the real side of the industry." It definitely is also, even if you're happy where you're at, you could be attracting talent through social
sure.
media as well.
Yeah.
Dan, one of the things I said in my introduction was that you're a cult hero. And the reason I come to that is because, like you said, you started in 2011 or so. I probably didn't know you for a few years after that. But on social media, I think you did some things with some sponsors, but also, you've had some bad weather events at your stadium that has picked up, some publicity and some press with that. And with that, you seem to shine in those roles of either, the sponsorship opportunity of showing a behind the scenes look at what your group's doing, or, working with your supporters, as they put out, thank yous to the grounds crew for dealing with the snow or the bad weather. Podcasting, I think, was one of the things I saw you do on that, or working with a group there, maybe. But you seem to like really lean into that sort of thing. What has the events, the bad weather type of situations or the opening days, what do you feel going into those? Is there an attention that's coming to you where you're getting asked lots of questions? And then what is it like afterwards, when you're dealing with, any kind of conversation that's happening with that?
Yeah, it's becoming more and more, or it's happening more and more with the season starting earlier every year,
Mm-hmm.
where we are getting those weather games. So specifically, I'm sure you're talking about the last snow game that we had, where we got 4 inches in about 30 minutes.
Fun.
Was anybody texting you during that time?
We go through and see. Yes, some people were saying some things, all positive, all support things. But this, Weston, it was crazy. It's crazy because it's just like, okay, we got to figure this out. The
Mm-hmm.
first time it happened, I got pulled into a meeting with, all the heavy hitters at the club, the president, my boss, the coaches. They're like, well, what's the plan for this? And I said, well, we have something written out, but we've never done it before.
Mm-hmm.
So you just figure it out, at the time. We met with the referees. So that first time we figured out we had to meet with the referees, and we developed like a signal system where if they needed to stop the game, they would do, I don't know, like pat at his head or something. Who knows what the refs want to do. But then we also had radios and we were communicating really well about that. But it when you're in the moment, it's cool to solve those problems. And if you get a little exposure from it, that's cool too. Um, and like I was saying, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Like this last snow game, we've probably had five or six that were just like that, and maybe a couple even worse
Mm-hmm.
than that. But for some reason, this one was picked up. One of our owners even called me and was like, "How did you guys do this?" He had people from all over the world calling him, and I just like couldn't believe it. Like this isn't like the first time we did that. It's it's cool to be recognized. It's cool to give the rest of the crew like their their shout out for
Mm-hmm.
that because I mean mostly what I was doing is running around from side to side like checking in with everyone and making sure they knew when to come out. But yeah, I pulled some friends from the stands to come and help just because we didn't have enough staff. And because of that good relationship with them, they're like so stoked to come and help shovel the lines. And yeah, it was
Awesome.
an experience for sure.
And what have you found, taking to social media and posting about I mean, obviously, like it's not all sunshine and rainbows in those moments. Have you found that people, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like gather around you or lift you up or support you? Like how has that helped you get through those events? I'm hoping that there's more positivity than negativity.
Sure. It's mostly stress in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm talking to my boss or people on the operations side, they're stressed.
Yep.
So what I like to say is we've done this before. We can handle it. We've got everything set up. Don't worry about us. And that's the biggest thing. Because there's constantly people like new people coming into the club in those positions. So not just with like snow games, but with everything, I just want to communicate to them that we are a crew or a department that you don't need to worry about. We
Mm-hmm.
get our stuff done and everything. So in the moment, stress on the club side, on the fan supporter side, excitement to see something different. And it didn't hurt that the team won 3 to
Yep.
0. Yeah.
Never does hurt.
Right.
My follow-up question to that is, you know, for someone that's in your position that, there is media relations, there's a team that can really aid in these, telling the story. What's your advice for them in kind of formulating that relationship with the media team? So that, the right story is being told. And an example of that is like we see it so often when, there's a local news crew comes in and is like, well, these people don't just mow grass, aren't you shocked? And how that's wasted airspace to just keep telling that story over and over again. So how have you really, formulated a relationship with your media team so that, they're telling the right story about this so that it's not just the same thing being told about a grounds crew?
Yeah. Good question because, like I just said before, there's constant turnover in those
Yep.
positions. So, the cool thing that we like to do is we just have a good relationship with the photographers, videographers at the club because they are there almost as much as we are, especially
Mm-hmm.
on a day. So, the snow game, for example, which nobody really picked up on, was you could see a photographer down by the field boards covered in snow with his or her camera going for it. So I always just make sure and try and give them a shout out as well.
Yep.
And then we've just set up a system where if they want to do something on the field, it's totally fine. They just come and check with me and, figure out what maintenance we're doing. It seems like at the beginning of the year, there's always like a hype video going on that we'll be a part of,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool. But um, I've been lucky that the media team here is just like so super talented that we don't have to give a ton of feedback. They're just so good
Yep.
that they make us look good. So I would say that we're friends with all those people there in that department, and then we banter at the club and on social media too. So I've just been lucky in that part of it.
And sorry, Weston, I'm going to ask one more question. Just keep bulldozing over your co-host role. But for
Keep going.
the folks out there that aren't lucky enough to have a media team, or maybe like they're, stonewalled in the sense that they can't get through to the media team to help tell their story. Social media is that place where they can really take control of the situation and tell a story of their own. So what would be kind of your advice on if you're starting out, today, or it's something you want to start doing more? What kind of stuff could they, or what kind of advice could they take from you? Because I mean, really, when you go on your profile, it is a great representation of keeping, the tone very positive, but while really showing the authentic side to everything.
Yeah. I so with Twitter, I try and keep it just for on the professional side.
Hmm.
Um, and then when I first started into it, I kind of messed around too much with like commenting on something, that's kind of adjacent to the MLS or to soccer or
Yep.
different things. But over time, I've learned to if if you want to keep it professional, look out for those people that are in our industry
Hmm.
that tweet a bunch. I don't have a ton of, yeah, like you said, of negativity. I've really tried to stay away from that. It's not easy to do, but I've only had like a handful of trolls that have come on that I've had to like block, which is great. Um,
Fun little element.
right. So it's following any of the guys or girls in the league in MLS.
Hmm.
I hope that I'm following them, and it'd be cool if they followed me too. But it's the messages that you get like through Twitter
Hmm.
that aren't public that have been super helpful. So it's either me reaching out or other people reaching out just or to get like your phone number or to get
Yeah.
sort of contact, not just for myself, but somebody else. I would stick to people that you admire in our fields. There's people that you get on and banter with. Kevin up in Seattle, him and I just communicate in GIFs and memes,
Love
which is
it.
um, so there's that relationship. There's different relationships like Paula or like Matt at Toro. Um, there's some people that I really respect and have helped me a ton on not just on social media, but with groundskeeping in general. Yeah, I don't know. It grows slowly, and when I'm posting things, it's also about like, tagging the right people too.
Hmm.
It's always tagging the club because then the club usually retweets it and on from that. And then it's also giving a shout out to sponsors. Like we're lucky enough to be sponsored by our local Toro dealership here in Salt Lake. It's about tagging like
Hmm.
Pioneer. We use Pioneer paint to paint the fields, or field experts
Mhm.
when, I try and put that on everything that we do. And I don't know, I try to make it fun. And yeah, I love the banter between groundskeepers. And it's just been fun. I mean, it's a place where I can go to actually get some information on Twitter specifically, um, and just try and keep it as professional as possible. So,
Definitely.
What's the most used GIF?
ooh,
Uh,
pull it up
I
right
asked
now.
the hard asking questions,
yeah, the
so
hard-hitting questions.
Okay, so the one that comes up the most is one of Ryan Reynolds. I don't know if I can swear on this podcast,
You
but
can.
you absolutely can.
it's just Ryan Reynolds, and he's just slamming his hands down and saying, "God damn it!" That seems to be the one that I.
You can't use that swear word though. We're gonna have
Okay.
to cut this. No, I'm joking.
Whole thing's cut. We're out of here.
That seems to be the one that I can use as a joke, and I'm seriously upset about
Yeah.
something. I like that one.
Love it.
Mine is always the Jim Halpert where he's sliding back into a seat, like hiding away.
Yeah.
That's the one I always get to. So I
Or
guess
him
I'm
looking
always
right
like
at the
just
camera, like,
hiding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so good.
Yep.
Well, to talk a little bit more about the cultural events that we do have coming up, World Cup, Super Bowl, what are some of those things that you think we could be doing to kind of capitalize on the global attention that those, garner? And, as we kind of talked through this with a couple of our guests, framing it in a sense that also, even if your Super Bowl is like your big Memorial Day tournament at the Parks and like, everyone can be kind of playing into this in some way. But what are some of those things that you think we could be doing to capitalize on these global events?
That's a good question about World Cup specifically. It is such a massive event that
Mm-hmm.
I think American sports fans in general just don't know much about. So I think first and foremost, it's getting better and better every year for sure. I mean, the last time we had a World Cup here in the US was 94. And, I was just a kid back then, but my dad, who was a soccer guy, he got to go to a game. So, that got me excited about that. Um, so on that side of it, I think it could be up to each individual market that,
Mm-hmm.
like in Salt Lake, our stadium isn't big enough to host a World Cup game,
Mm-hmm.
but we might get to be able to do different things in the tournament. So it would be hyping up those different things that we'll get to do. But in a market like LA or New York where they're actually going to have games, I think it's a no-brainer to really blow those events out of the water and just really get the word out for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, on the Super Bowl side, the field has really been a hot topic of conversation the
Mm-hmm.
last few years. And those guys really knocked it out of the park. I guess what's the football saying for instead of knock it out of the park? I don't know.
Uh,
There is one.
touchdown.
Touchdown.
They really touched down the
The pain especially this year. The
uh,
pain especially this year.
I love it.
no, they did such an awesome job, especially this year, just with um talking about the field and what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing and how awesome it was. So the nice thing about that, just as a side note, is as someone who's kind of in the world, you guys can probably attest to this too. As a field manager, I'm watching it and I'm seeing, um, oh well, they trained on it all week and they
Yeah.
had to practice the halftime show and all these different factors that have affected the field. So I think they've done a really good job with that, with the Super Bowl field specifically. Um, as for like a smaller, maybe a Parks and Rec Super Bowl, like you're talking about, they're big events. It's just good to, if I'm someone who's putting on a big tournament at our training facility, it's just about getting the word out
Yeah.
for that specific event. I mean, we had during COVID, we were lucky enough to have the NWSL tournament at our facility. And that was super cool because it was one of the first events that came out of COVID. And we were proud to be a part of that. So it was easy on social media to really hype that up.
Hmm.
So I don't know if it's getting with, if you don't have a media team, it's kind of on your own to get that information out there.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, and I think if you're, a groundskeeper that isn't directly related to the World Cup and you see somebody making an effort to really create buzz for our industry, just supporting that wholeheartedly, like retweeting, sharing, helping tell their story. Because that's my favorite part about that month leading up to the Super Bowl is just retweeting and sharing everything I see come out of any of the guys and ladies on the crew is
Yeah.
just giving them a bigger microphone to share their story. Because the fact that they're putting the effort in to do it is, one barrier already that we're already accomplishing. Like we've got people that are willing to, talk about it. And so really just building them up so that more people are encouraged to share.
Yeah.
Maybe the World Cup isn't going to be your stage to shine on because the stress alone, I'm sure, can silence some people. But maybe just seeing like how someone else really was supported during that event, in turn can, help you when we all return back to our facilities and have normal play, taking a stab at, really stepping into the spotlight.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I mean, there's so many things to be excited about in the next couple of years for sure. But is there anything that has you holding on or that you're really excited about? Things that you see emerging from the industry or just general hype around your team that has you excited. The hood is up. The hood is up from Weston. Those of you not watching on
Picking up.
YouTube, the elements are getting the best of him.
I love that.
It's a cold rain. It's a cold rain.
So yeah, Dan, take as long as you need to answer that last question.
Oh, um, things I'm excited about, specifically with myself, um, and I know you've had Ryan on, and then
We got to
Robert.
hear how you pronounce his last name.
Oh, I don't even mess with it. You guys tell me. I don't
We
want
like
to.
had a whole segment when we
Yeah,
would
yeah. I should have listened to that again to see how he did it, but I'll just say,
uh Bajorn, right?
Bjorn.
Bajorn is
okay.
how
Yeah.
Yeah,
we've settled on it.
yeah.
Sorry.
Just a
Continue.
legend. A legend. And then Robert up in Toronto. We are part of this group. It's called the Professional Soccer Field Managers um, Group. We're still workshopping the name.
I love it.
It's something that actually Weston, like you and Alan, ran for quite some time, where it was just MLS groundskeepers. We kind of dropped the ball because of COVID and different
Mhm.
things, but we've kind of got it back together where all MLS groundskeepers are meeting kind of before the SFMA, um, the big meeting, SFMA conference. But the cool thing about it is it's not just MLS people, it's NWSL groundskeepers, MLS Next groundskeepers, USL groundskeepers, and then we even had people from Mexico come. Real Madrid guys were there, which just
Nice.
blows my mind. And guys from England were there as well. So that gets me really excited just be able to grow that group,
Mm-hmm.
um, and be able to meet and have really good sponsors, um, that have been with us since, I mean, when was the first, do you even remember, Weston, when the first like one of those meetings were?
I think it was 2015 or 16, whatever year San Diego was. I believe that was the
Okay.
first meeting we had was in San Diego.
Okay. Yeah. So and I've been lucky enough to be a part of those, to attend those since then. But that group is just growing and growing and growing, and I think it'll be huge by the time the World Cup gets here. But yeah, that's the most exciting thing, is just getting those of us in that group kind of out in the open,
Mm-hmm.
and guys meeting, I had never met the guys from Cincinnati before, or
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of other guys. Um so yeah, that really excites me going forward.
Dan, stop me if I'm wrong here, but I heard next year a good like 2 hour talk is going to happen, where you guys bring in a referee and you guys set up a goal and you measure heights of goals to make sure that it is right. He shows you the
Okay.
correct way.
That is a great idea, first of all. And second of all, that was not my fault. There was a
So
Go ahead, go ahead.
So, Meg, just to fill you in, as an MLS groundskeeper, there is a long-standing history of, goals have to be 8 inch or 8 feet to height. But referees feel that they can come out and stick their arms up in the air, and that is the height that they know 8 feet to be. And they tend to want to have groundskeepers come out with tape measures and double check heights based off
Yikes.
of what shoes they're wearing that day.
Yep.
And I think I saw in the last couple of weeks, Dan got called out on it. And there's nothing more rewarding as a groundskeeper than being dead on and
Mm-hmm.
proving to an official that they're wrong and you're right. And it just brings so much joy.
I
Am I
love
right? Did
it.
I nail that?
It is the best. So last year one of the refs did the arm test, and they like go up on their tippy toes and like, this is off. Our eyes, and we said, okay. Um, and we measured, and it was dead on.
Love
Um,
it.
the issue is what has to happen then is the match, um, liaison,
Coordinator.
or ref
Yeah.
liaison.
Yep.
He has to report to the league that the ref said it was off, but we measured and it was on.
Mm-hmm.
So the liaison neglected to report that. So the next day or something, there was a league-wide email that said, "Oh, the refs need to meet the groundskeepers every game before to measure the goals."
Oh
And
my
we,
gosh.
okay. And it lasted about 2 weeks, and they don't do it really much anymore, except for last week. This referee, he didn't even do the arm test, Weston. He just eyeballed it and said, that looks
He's not feeling it today.
no. And so we have these newer goals. They're called Forza goals. I don't know if you guys have heard of them. Either way, you can adjust them. So you tighten a bolt or loosen a bolt, and they'll go up and down.
Mm.
So we knew with 100% certainty that it was right on. So we walk out
There's
there with the tape measure, and I'm just looking. I shouldn't have done this, but I just looked at him, measured it, and said it's 8 feet, right? He's like,
I love it.
he wouldn't. Yeah. So
you'll
Incredible.
never hear more curse words coming from a groundskeeper than the walk that he has to take to get to a shop to grab the tape measure and back out to do that. So
that's right.
That needs to be a whole series. Just
Right.
like that walk, just getting them on film for that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. But no, I mean, groups like that, having those people to share in that camaraderie of like, the shared torment that you guys go through, but also, the wins and the things that make this industry special. But definitely being able to have that group expand over the next couple of years so that you all can support each other as we head into this massive event. Because I think when we were talking to Paul, it was like the mental health aspect, making sure we're keeping everybody healthy and happy so that they can return to their normal day to day after this is said and done. So
Right.
all good things. And now that you've mentioned another group that I can, pitch myself to, I will be sending an email to Ryan Bajorn to be like, let me be a part of this group as well.
For sure. For sure.
It's too good. Well, Dan, thank you so much. It's
Thank
been
you.
an absolute pleasure. And I'm very excited to, continue to be a fan of your social media, but also just kind of see what's to come over the next couple of years and keeping up the connections for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you guys so much. Honored to be a part of this for sure. And I'll embarrass Weston a little bit.
Perfect.
I haven't had a ton of I haven't had a ton of mentors growing in this industry. Going on the Parks and Rec side and then kind of not falling into the groundskeeper side. I had to really lean on guys in the league that have been there for a while. So Weston was one of those guys, Alan down in Dallas, Robert in Toronto, shoot, Dan in New York. And I'm sorry if I'm missing anybody else, but those guys turned into my mentors, and they are the ones that introduced me to the people at Toro or Pioneer or the heavy hitters in the industry. So thanks, Weston, and to all those guys. I wouldn't be here without those guys taking me under their wing when I first got into the league. So thanks, man.
It's rain running down my face right now. It's not tears. So
I know
uh,
that was the warm and fuzzy. I mean, that was so sweet, and I was really looking for you to actually embarrass him, but I think people will
yeah,
like that better. So
very much appreciate that, man, and mutual back to you. I've learned so much from you, and this is a joy to be able to sit here and talk with you.
Yeah.
In any way, but on this is awesome. So really appreciate you.